What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we're going to talk about the Arizona housing market. I'm actually coming to you from Asia. I've been traveling across Asia making videos for Island Hopper TV. For those of you who follow me over there, you already know that I've been to Vietnam and so some of these other places. Spent 2 months in Philippines, also Thailand, Malaysia. So lots of traveling that I've been doing. But today we're going to talk about the housing market because there's some interesting developments that have been taking place out in Arizona. Uh, when housing prices go down or any market declines in prices, people tend to panic, including myself. But there's always a silver lining to that because what goes up must come down. Well, in one of these situations, oh, wait, let me say what's up to everyone in the comments. We got Jeff, what's going on? Water Tiger, SMG. Nice to see you, Scott. So, yeah, we're going to keep talking about this because it is a subject that keeps coming up. We're going to also talk about why this could be good news for a lot of people because, we reached this like double price. I think they said the average median house price in America at the time of 2018 was around 211,000. Now all of a sudden it's around 400,000. So it was like, well, we're just going to continue to go up, up, up. And the problem is, see, here's the thing. There's not enough affordable housing, but there's also a housing shortage. So as you can see, you go around Phoenix, you go around any big city in America, you see people on the streets. And that means there's not enough housing for these people. And you start to wonder, well, we've got all this money to send to other countries. I'm not going to name the country because I don't want to get this stream flagged, but you get the idea. We've got billions of dollars to send to other countries, but we don't seem to have any idea how to actually create housing for people in our own country, right? So we're willing to help out everyone else. And if you're a taxpayer who's been paying into the system, you're kind of like, this doesn't make sense. Not to get too political about it, but you have to think about those kind of things when you drive down downtown Phoenix or Mesa and you see so many people. Like, it seems like the numbers just keep going up, right? I mean, we've seen this, but the issue is really not enough affordable housing. And when the prices in Phoenix started going through the roof, I was making okay money. I mean, if I was making that money in 2018, I'd really be styling. But because of inflation, uh, an apartment in North Phoenix was costing me around $2,700 for a cardboard box. Really, it was a new apartment complex, but they didn't build it for space. They just built 2 rooms, and then right in the middle was a living space. But if you're 6'2" and you're sharing that space with someone else, you're kind of like, I don't know how much longer I can do this. First months, it's great. Second month, you start to realize, I don't know how long I can do this. And then by the time you're at month 8, you're like, $2,700 for this. And then you try to wonder, well, if I go outside, what can I do? Can I go for a hike? Can I go for a walk? Well, Phoenix isn't a walking friendly city. And then it gets really hot. So you're like, the only way around is to go, get in your car, go down to Circle K or something like that. But yeah, the housing market went through the roof. I think most of you can sympathize with that, and I think most of you feel that, right? What's going on, Eric? What's going on, Bill and Yvette? How are you guys doing? JK Fuerte, nice to see you guys. Thanks to everyone. It's been a while since we've done a live stream. I know you guys really love live streams. Here it is 10:51 in the morning where I'm at in Thailand, in Bangkok. And in Phoenix, I think it's around 9 o'clock. Correct me if I'm wrong. Someone let me know in the comments what time it is exactly, because I'm just guessing. But anyway, let's talk about this information more in detail. Thank you to the 19 people who smashed up the likes to help get this video out there. We do have videos coming out on this channel, even though I'm making mostly videos for Island Hopper TV. You guys will still see videos coming out on this channel, so don't worry. Now, here's the information that's really caught my attention. So monthly sales are down 20%. So 20% is a large number. It's not like 2%. It's not 5%. That's in July of 2023. Okay. So obviously we're going to get some numbers for August. Those take a little bit of time. There's always a little bit of a delay. New inventory hitting the market is down 39%. Now, it's noteworthy that in July, 5,775 home sales marked the second lowest report ever for a July. Now, the thing that caught my attention about this was the last time they had this was in 2007, which was the lowest on record. So we just had the second lowest right next to 2007. Well, if we flash back to 2007, you guys already know what happened back then. I'm not saying that we're going to repeat what happened then in the same way, but I'm saying that, yeah, we went into a housing market recession that lasted around 10 years. So you've got all this data saying that new inventory on the market's down, housing prices are coming down. So I think they said the housing price in July was down 4% year over year. So if you bought a house like me in 2022, because I was tired of renting, my rent price in North Phoenix at the time was around 2,700, and then I moved to a place called Camden, and I was paying 2,400. And at paying $2,400 a month and traveling, I was like, you know what? That's almost, I mean, what's 2,400? It's almost $30,000 per year going to rent. I was like, well, even though the housing market's high, I'm just going to buy a condo. I didn't buy a big house just to at least have money going into the kitty. And I'm like, well, if I wait 5 years, 10 years in this condo or rent it, it'll probably bounce back and recover, because the way the US economy is structured right now, they like to inflate the money supply and inflate the economy, financial inflation, right? Jeff says, seriously, you can't live in something like that by yourself making minimum wage. No, you cannot. I mean, we did a poll on this channel. I don't know if you guys had responded to it, but it's on the community tab. We asked people what their minimum wage was when they first started. And people in the 80s were saying they were making around $4 or $5 an hour when they first got involved. I think minimum wage right now is around like $7.15. I don't know the exact minimum wage, but it's somewhere around there. So it hasn't really kept up with the times. And here's the thing about minimum wage. You know who can afford minimum wage? Companies that are publicly traded on Wall Street. They have unlimited access to funds. But you know who can't really afford a $15 an hour minimum wage? Mom and pop shops, people who are small businesses who don't have that back end, to grab from the stock market, from Wall Street. So I think that mandating minimum wage for small business owners is impossible. You can't do that, because those people don't have the advantage that publicly traded companies do, which is publicly traded shares where they can just take money and fund their company, even though they're not profitable. If a mom and pop shop is just barely getting by during like a situation with lockdowns that we just had, how are they going to pay someone $15 an hour if they're actually running a deficit? So Walmart, they can be in the negative, they can be in the red. Amazon can be in the red for 10 years and still afford to pay people affordable wage because they have the stock market, the Wall Street. But you, a small business owner, you can't afford that. So it's not, you have to be very careful what you're asking for, because that's kind of like the sneak attack is, yeah, $15 minimum wage across the board for everybody, but not all companies are created the same. Does that make sense? Are you guys getting what I'm saying? Because that's really an important factor. And I think small business owners know this better than anyone. How many of you guys own a small business in the comments? I'd be interested to see how many of you are self-employed or have a small business. And if you have a small business, you can't just do it all alone. I mean, at some point in time, you're going to have to ask for help, whatever industry you're in. If you're in the clothing industry, you're going to have to ask for a tailor, a seamstress at some point in time. If you're a gardener, you're going to have to ask someone to take care of the plants if you go out of town or have a day off, because plant care is 7 days a week. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, you're going to need some help. So be very careful asking small business owners to be doing $15 an hour minimum wage, because they can't afford it. Now, the free market's going to judge and dictate whether or not they can stay in business, because that 19-year-old or 32-year-old or whoever it is that's going to get the job, they're going to say, no, I'm not going to work for you because I could go to Walmart and make $15 an hour and you're only going to pay me $7.15. So let the free market iron that out. But to mandate a small business owner to do that, it's crazy. It's not practical. But let's talk about this problem of lack of affordable housing in Arizona. I could talk about it all across America being a problem, obviously. But one of the things that frustrates me as someone who travels around the world, see, the benefit of traveling around all these places is I see things that work. I see things that don't work. And then I think to myself, hey, why don't we have this in Arizona? I mean, there's so many different things that I've seen in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Taipei, in Philippines, all over. I mean, Dubai, things that can work in Arizona. And you think to yourself, whoa, we need this in Arizona. And the first thing I think is, how do I tell everyone that this needs to happen? And I sort of get frustrated because I'm like, there's things that can make lifestyle in Phoenix so much better, so much more functional. People don't even realize how much awesome opportunity there is. And then I think, well, why don't we have creative minds? Why aren't people forward thinking like this? And then I think, well, what could be causing that? Why is there a lack of creativity and ingenuity and innovation happening in America, or in particular in Arizona, because we're really talking about Arizona? I think about Arizona. I remember when Bank One Ballpark was built in Phoenix. They call it the Bob, right? That's now called Chase Field. That was like a state of the art marvel when it was built. It had a retractable roof. Everyone was big on it. Well, then in 2004, they built the Cardinal Stadium, University of Phoenix Stadium, State Farm Stadium. That one had a retractable roof plus a retractable field. But since 2004, we haven't had any real exciting projects going on in Arizona on that level or on that magnitude. And I'm not just talking about stadiums. I'm just talking about modern marvels. So how is it that we became one of the fastest growing cities in the country for so many years, yet we managed to not build anything other than freeways and maybe a light rail? And I had this conversation with my sister about light rails, because when I travel in Asia, I always ride public transportation, but I tried to ride the light rail going from downtown Phoenix to Tempe, and I was like, never again. And I wouldn't recommend that to my girlfriend, my wife, my kids. I would not recommend they ride the light rail in Phoenix. We were talking about how it's basically unrideable because the people who ride that are dangerous. Those are dangerous people. Like, if you look at them the wrong way, I mean, they're hostile. They talk to themselves at the stations. I don't know if any of you guys have ever ridden the light rail, but they keep building the light rail, and you think, well, why do they keep building the light rail? Like, Scottsdale won't even let them put the line going up into Scottsdale because they know it would make it easy access for people to get up into Scottsdale into their neighborhoods to do more panhandling and begging and all the things that they do, you know. And look, we have sympathy for people who are on hard times and end up homeless. It's not about having a lack of sympathy. It's about having a functional civilization and society that's safe for your family and friends, and everyone can enjoy it, right? And I've seen it. I've seen it in places like Singapore. I've seen it in Hong Kong. Safe and functional societies can work, okay? They really can. It's not like something that's so far out of reach. But there has to be people who have this desire and this urge in our leadership in our country and in our state to fix it and solve the problem and address it at the root, okay? And if people don't have that incentive, or they don't have that drive to actually fix a problem, and they don't have the creative foresight because maybe they lack the education and they don't have enough ideas coming, then we need to get the people in there who have the ideas to make the place a livable place. And I see this in the comments on this channel. People are always like, yeah, don't go to this place. Don't go to Tempe. Don't go to this part of town. Don't go to Mesa. Don't go to Glendale. It's so dangerous. You should see what happens out in Glendale. You should see what happens in West Phoenix. I mean, that's been a story for a long time. West Phoenix has always kind of been a little bit of a shady area, right, to hang out, especially around, like, I don't know, 26th Avenue and Indian School, or yeah, that whole area right there, or 7th Avenue and Bell Road. It's really a tough area. You probably don't want to be walking around there after 6 o'clock, right? But you know, it's just, there's a lot of crazy stuff that I see that just doesn't make sense, and you start to wonder, why is it this way? And that's the affordable housing stuff. That's the lack of functionality. Someone said, "How dare you talk about a functioning society?" Okay, I take it you're being facetious, because a functioning society should be common sense, right? Like, that's like saying, "How dare you want to be healthy? What's wrong with you? Why do you want to have a healthy mind and a healthy body and a healthy lifestyle?" Like, someone would come to you and make fun of you or say something terrible about that, you'd be like, "Wait, are you serious? Or are you joking?" So obviously you're joking, but I get it's just funny. Some people literally get offended if you talk about a functioning society. So the big thing that I'm thinking about is, like, this morning, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, we need more areas in Phoenix where you can eat, sleep, work, play. Okay. Concentrating the population, not to a point where it's overwhelming and there's people shoulder to shoulder, but developing communities where it's livable environments. Yeah, you're still going to have families, you're still going to have suburbs, but then you have a lot of people who are younger, under 30, that are really feeling lost right now. They can't afford where to live. They don't know where to live. They might not all have parents that they can live with. And these eat, sleep, work, play, it should be in every university and every college campus where it's just so livable. And how do you get to a point where you create livable areas? Well, you need to actually ask the youth, you need to ask people what it is they would like to see. Why is there no public opinion on this? Why is there no one going out there saying, what would you like? And so, like, when I look at this channel or think about this channel, I'm like, why don't we ask you guys, what is a livable quarter? Like, if you could take the limitations off of reality and you could say, well, if I could just live in a place, let's just call it a senior living center or a senior community, because the senior communities that we have right now in Sun City, the next generation, the millennials and the Gen Xers and the Gen Z, they're not going to want to live in those areas. Those are all going to have to come down. Those are baby boomer, which is fine. Baby boomers are great. Okay. They're great, but they're not going to be around forever. Maybe another 20 years, right? 30 years, who knows? But those communities are going to be torn down and they're going to have to reimagine how it is. But why can't we reimagine or think about how we can do this for younger people right now? Okay. And that's part of the dysfunction. That's why you have so many people giving up on life, turning to the streets, because you can only kick someone or keep someone down for so long with lack of jobs, lack of pay, lack of opportunity before they finally give up. And then they start medicating with these things that they're getting from the streets. And everyone starts pointing the finger at them saying, oh, shame on you. You should have never done that. But you didn't walk in their shoes. So how do you know what they're going through or had to go through to get in that situation to begin with, right? So we need to design civilization to work in a way that's compatible with the modern age. And we need to focus on that, especially if you're a community leader, especially if you're someone who considers yourself a leader in the government or anywhere, even in business. This is a business opportunity because this is something that's in demand. Okay. And Phoenix, being a growing city, should be at the forefront of paving that way. And I'm not seeing much creativity coming out of Phoenix. Tempe's got a little bit of it, but I mean, what is going on out there? I mean, I see it in Singapore. I see it in Hong Kong. I've seen it all around. It's just they're always a day late and a dollar short with everything they build, and then they wonder why it doesn't work. I mean, Phoenix, a city of 5 million people, has a hockey team, and they can't find out how to make that hockey team successful, how to do anything with that hockey team. But yet Las Vegas, with about 1/3 the population, is just absolutely killing it with the Golden Knights, but they can't figure out how to get the Coyotes or franchise or organization to work. Well, that's because the people in charge and the people running the show have no idea how to market. They have no idea what they're doing. So they're thinking, well, we got to move. They're going to take their organization, their franchise, and their ideas, and they're going to go to Reno. That's what they're talking about now. But it's like, no, until that organization changes its mindset and how they're doing the business, nothing's going to change. Same thing with the Diamondbacks. I mean, the Diamondbacks in the 90s under Jerry Colangelo were, you would go into Bank One Ballpark and it'd be a sellout. We have more people living in Phoenix now than we did in the 90s, but they can't even sell more than 15,000 seats. So what went wrong? Well, the ownership. The ownership doesn't get it. This is the thing. This is the leadership. So we have a leadership problem in our country. And until you people and us people finally say, hey, the people that are in charge, they're not working. We need to replace them. We're not going to get any changes. And that's going to come down to affordable housing. That's going to come down to all the things we have going on. Jeff says, younger people are dumber, though, and pampered. Gen Z's is 20 points lower in average. I'm not going to sit there and say that, because I'll tell you why. Because the parents of the baby boomers said the same thing about the baby boomers, right? Like, this is a common thing. People always think that the next generation is dumber. They're different. They grew up with technology. They grew up with video games. I mean, I was watching this interview with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. So he's a forward thinker. He's only 38. They call him MBK or something like that, or MBS. I forgot his name. You can watch it. You should watch it. It's on Fox News. They did a interview, the sit-down interview. I'm not advocating for Fox News. What I'm saying is the guy who did the interview was from Fox, and he's 38 years old, but he's the king of Saudi Arabia. And they asked him, they said, so do you have any hobbies? And he said, video games. I was kind of flabbergasted by that. I mean, I'm only 40, but I was like, the king of Saudi Arabia is favorite hobby is video games. That's just you wouldn't hear that from a leader who's 70 or 80 years old. It's just a change of the times. I mean, the young people are going to inherit the earth, right? Like the people who are old, I'm not going to be here forever. You guys aren't going to be here forever. There's always going to be a new generation coming. So I would say that the young people need to be heard, and we need to understand them more because they're relevant, and they're going to be older soon, and hopefully they're going to get wiser. But I wouldn't say necessarily that they're dumber or lazier. It's just the things that inspire them and get them excited to go out and work are different than the things that got me excited or got you excited. Thanks to everyone who hit the likes. We're at 53, and I'm reading some of these comments now. Be Kind says, MBS, look him up, not a leader. Well, I mean, I watched the interview. I'm always open to, before I make my opinion, it takes more time, okay? So with him, I want to, number one is obviously read what's out there on him. I mean, I think we know what happened to some of the journalists and all that. We heard about that in Turkey. And then, you know, I'm not going to pass my opinion on that because I don't know. I can only go off of what I see on YouTube or see on the internet. But also when I watched the interview with him recently, you know, they're building the line called Nome, which is this futuristic city. It's just one big line. But I will say this. I've been to Dubai, a city that so many people doubted. You go to Dubai, it's the safest city I've ever been to, aside from maybe Hong Kong and Singapore. Those are like the top 3 safest cities in the world: Dubai, Singapore, and Hong Kong. And I've been all across America, and people always say, what's the safest city, or how dangerous is it? I'm like, the most dangerous place I ever been was in certain parts of New York and Los Angeles in the world, hands down. And I'm not kidding. We're talking about areas you shall not go. And if you do go there, you better be very careful. There's some places like Rio de Janeiro where you can come across that. But when it comes to safety, the safest cities in the world are not in America. And I could tell you, I mean, I could lie to you and say something that you want to hear. You know, I could tell you Sweet Little Lies. What's that song? Sweet lies, sweet little lies. I mean, I could give you that whole story. But it's not in America. And I just told you the 3 that I've been to. And so how did they get to a point where they have no homelessness, virtually no homelessness? And the homeless I did see was in Hong Kong. They lived under some of the bridges. There was very little homelessness, but they were very clean and tidy. The people in Hong Kong that did live, I mean, occasionally I would see like a drunk person, but they were not in abundance in high numbers. This is just the way it is, right? So I see that and I say, you know, hey, I mean, you know, you got to have a little pride about yourself, right? You're like, where I come from. I mean, traveling as an American these days is not what it used to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you'd say, oh, I'm from America. They say, oh, you're from America. You lucky. Now you go somewhere and they say, where are you from? You say America. And they go, oh, have you seen mass shootings? Have you ever been shot at? It's like the same question you would get if you were an Army soldier or in the military. Like people say, oh, you know, you were in the military. Did you ever do this? Did you ever do that? Did you ever see that? Now being an American traveling abroad, that's how they think it is. I'm like, no, I don't see mass shootings. I mean, I'm like, you can go to America and you're not going to see a mass shooting. You're not going to see anything like that. But they see it on the news, and like even some old guy, he was like, oh my gosh, America, bang, 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 bang. And I was like, no, it's not that bad. And that's what they think. So America has developed this reputation as a dangerous place, which is funny because most Americans, they'll sit there and say, that place is dangerous. This place is dangerous. Don't go there. And then you go to Dubai, where I've had Americans tell me, don't go to Dubai. It's dangerous. And you're like, this is the safest place I've ever been. I think Qatar is now even safer than Dubai, but I've never been to Qatar. So, you know, it's like, I mean, like I said, you got to have a little bit of pride. And as an American traveling, I'm kind of like embarrassed because I'm like, I can't believe America's gotten to this point where this is the reputation that we have around the world. And it's frustrating because I'm like, we're not that bad of people. We're actually a really awesome group of people. We're like some really cool. I'm like, I mean, some of the Americans that I know are like some of the best people you'll ever meet. And this is our reputation around the world. I mean, and I'm just sharing this as a background thought. I guess I'm getting a little more personal, but it frustrates me because how far we've fallen. And so, yeah. Be Kind says Qatar is beautiful. First name, last name says, yeah, I've been accosted 6 times in California before leaving. Wow. wow, 6 times. That's crazy. I mean, there are some places where I have encountered scammers, though. It's not just in the U.S. There's some places that I went that were a little bit more difficult than others. But Jeff says, I agree with you 100%. It's a different motivation. Another Jeffster says, AI will make most people jobless. We don't have an answer to that. It's important to receive prosperity with dignity. Robots do all the work now. Yeah, so when we're building these new cities, we have to take into consideration people aren't going to need freeways as much. They're not going to be traveling as much. That's why we need this focus and concentration on places that have. Thank you to 65 people who hit the likes. Hit the likes if you guys want me to keep going. By the way, we're 25 minutes into it. And I'll keep going if more people want, but we'll see. But the eat, sleep, work, play kind of idea, living areas in Arizona, some things that need to happen. Now, I was having this conversation with my sister. Why don't we consider an indoor water park? Okay. We can build a big retractable roof stadium, but we can't build a big retractable roof fun zone for kids. It doesn't even have to be like a Disneyland. It could be something totally reimagined, something totally state of the art, by letting local artists and local minds come together and think of ideas of what to make a new age theme park look like, or what it could be. I mean, we could be setting trends across the world, teaching the rest of the world how to do things. That's the America that I grew up in, believing in. That's the America I want to see come back, where you have these creative thinkers, these artists, these designs. Like, let art make a revolution in Phoenix. Like, bring back more art. Art is everything, like, when it comes to creativity. And I'm not a big art person, but I respect art because I go around to these places. I'm like, architecture, artist, whatever it was, they designed that. And that's amazing. And I respect artists for that. But it's not just about even museums. It's about art in your city. Like a place like Paris. I mean, people go to Paris because of the art that was created there, 200, 300 years ago. And the whole city was designed basically by a bunch of artists who put sculptures and bridges and did all these cool things. Let me give you an example. Mill Avenue, the bridge. That is like the most boring, lame bridge that we could have ever built. I go to Vietnam, they have like 10 different bridges going across the river in Da Nang, okay? They have one that has like this big dragon just going right through the middle of it. You can look it up, or you can watch my videos on Vietnam. I'm going to be showing you guys the Dragon Bridge. And every Saturday and Sunday, they have a dragon show at 9 p.m. for 15 minutes where the dragon actually shoots fire out of its mouth. A huge dragon. It's fake, obviously, but it shoots fire out of its mouth. And then at the end, it sprays out all this water. How come we don't do something cool like that in Tempe along the bridge right there? Instead, we got this old bridge that we can't repair, we can't replace. It's so boring, looks so just not cool. I mean, something is similar like that. I was thinking like, wow, the artists who had this cool idea to build this dragon bridge, and then they have this cool like suspension bridge. I think they even built one in Colorado. But stuff like that is what Tempe needs, what Phoenix needs, is more art like that, because that gets people excited to get out there and go take pictures and do all sorts of stuff, hang out. But when it's very bland and there's nothing to see, there's just a little bit of grass and you got like a dirt road, that's like Tempe Town Park, right? It's like they're building some stuff, but it's not really a place you want to go hang out too often. I mean, you go down there maybe once a year, but it's not like a place you go. It's not a commons. It's not a place you want to go too often because there's nothing really to do. One thing you can do just to bring people out is build sculptures and do more art, because people will go there just for the purpose of taking pictures. It's something that frivolous, something that petty gets people out of the house just to go take pictures, and also gets tourists to come to your city and spend money and stimulate the economy, especially for the local businesses, because they're coming to take pictures. Just something that easy. That's the benefit. That's the beauty of art. It brings people from far and wide. But I mean, aside from Frank Lloyd Wright's Taliesin West, what are some things that really get people excited about coming to Arizona to take pictures? I mean, there's this castle that we have that's barely even open, and people want to go there, but it's almost never open. Good luck trying to get a tour for that. Taliesin West is the same way. And aside from that, where are you going to get any sort of art that's worth a darn, aside from the Phoenix Art Museum? You're not. You're not. So something as easy as just having an art revolution, someone coming along, one of you guys, or I don't know, someone putting the word out, hey, let's bring back art to our city, can really enhance the whole vibe. It really can. Yeah, we've talked about home prices. So the home prices that we talked in the beginning of it, but the main thing that we're talking about is how in the beginning housing prices went way up, and then they came, they're just slowly going back down again. So it's like a chart. The chart forms crocodile teeth, right? So it was really just like a peak up, and now it's just kind of slowly going down again. Probably going to get back to where it was around, I would say 2021. That would probably be the bottom of the market. I don't think we go back to 2018 prices, but I mean the reason we got off on this other tangent when it came to housing prices is because we don't know where the bottom is, but we know what the problem is of why people are so concerned about housing, what's causing the housing problem. So I went more for the root of the problem than the idea of what the price is, where the price is, because we could sit here and speculate the price all day long. We only know what the data tells us from 2 months ago, right? So we could speculate where we think the bottom is or where we think the top is, but really getting a conversation that goes more in the direction of what can we do to stabilize the market, and what is the problem in society is why we went into the kind of more engineering. We went into more of the engineering arena than we did in the statistics side of things. Sad how squatters get rights living in an owner's vacant home. A friend of mine had that happen to him, but over time he got his home back. This is so wrong. Yeah, that's kind of weird. I heard that people who just refuse to leave can still stay. Like if someone owns the property and someone refuses to leave, even after the eviction, they have a lot of rights. Which most of you who are law abiding and do things correctly, if you got an eviction notice, you'd be like, I'm out. Unfortunately, the people who get eviction notices are not the law abiding people who follow the rules and have the honor program installed in their integrity. So you have that issue right there. Jester says AZ has very little budget for art compared to New York City. There's always this conversation about budget. I mean, I would say that my message would be more towards the private sector, privatizing a lot of things, like what they've done with the railroad. I think L.A. to Las Vegas rail. I think that's a private company who owns that. And I think there's a private company who owns the rail network going from from Miami to Orlando. I think that's also owned by Richard Branson or something. So I would say that the message about theme parks, indoor theme parks, is not necessarily on the city. The city's job should be zoning and ordinance and trying to encourage that with maybe tax incentives, but not saying that the city needs to build everything. So that doesn't mean that your taxpayers, your money should be going towards this stuff. There could be some incentives involved in that, like tax breaks for people who are bringing innovation into the city. But I don't necessarily know that the city needs to be the one doing everything. Maybe with a bridge, obviously that would have to be a city, unless they could charge for the show or something like that. But you would also maybe make it a tourist. A lot of these places have the money to do this because they're drawing in tourists. So Hawaii, for example, if you ever look at the tax on how much you're charged for your hotel, I think it's like 15 to 20%, right? That's a tourist tax. It doesn't really affect the locals as much as it would affect the tourist. So a lot of people want to come down to Arizona, be a snowbird, this and that. And so if you're lacking public funding, instead of putting it on the locals, the people who live there, maybe put it on the visitors, the people who want to visit and enjoy it. But you have to kind of get the people to want to visit, right? So you have to build out that tourist industry. And, I think it can be done in a very sustainable way. I mean, Phoenix, if you go around Phoenix, it's really uniquely built because you have like empty tracts of land, and then you have some buildings and communities, and then you have empty tracts of land or run down buildings. I mean, at some point in time, you would think, well, why don't we start, instead of going out into the desert, into like places like Superstition Mountains or into Gold Canyon further, or into East Mesa even further, or West Phoenix into Tonopah, or North Phoenix up beyond New River and Cave Creek, why not start focusing a little bit more internally in the city, not just in Phoenix, but in Scottsdale. I mean, let me ask you guys this. Of all the suburbs in Phoenix, which one do you think is like leading by example? Is it Gilbert? That would be one of my picks. Tempe, I thought Tempe was doing a bang up job getting things done. The city of Phoenix does not impress me much with anything they've got going on, even though they're the king of the hill. They've got all the resources to do it, but they don't really impress me. You go to downtown Phoenix, people always say, "Oh, Roosevelt Row," and I'm like, okay, Roosevelt Row, yeah, it's cool, okay. Downtown Scottsdale, Old Town Scottsdale, but then you go there a couple times and you're like, I mean, unless you're like a big party person. But Gilbert, it seems like Gilbert, Scottsdale, and Tempe seem to be the leaders in this, although Glendale seems to get all the new cool projects. They got the stadiums, they've got the theme park, Mattel is being built there. It's things like that. Solent says, greetings from Cochise County, TGIF to all the working folk. Yeah, thank God it's Friday. It is Friday. Here in Asia, where I'm at, making videos for Island Hopper TV, it is the weekend. Someone said, yeah, I would highlight the comments you made about the president or the politics, but I'm trying, even though I am getting into the engineering concepts of community building, I still have to stay away from politics because some people really get put off by it. I mean, otherwise I would. White Mountains are the best at living in Arizona. Sorry, can't do the cities. Oh, I know. I had this conversation on my Instagram, on my private Instagram, talking about how a lot of people are anxious. They have a lot of stress because they're always living in the city. Even living in Mesa, I feel a lot of stress just living there. So you're constantly driving and dealing with stress, and there's no real stress relief or stress releases that you can do because it's a big bustling city. It's concrete here, sidewalks that are unwalkable because people are buzzing by you at 65 miles an hour in big trucks and rush hour traffic. So you can't really go walk around the city. So you're basically just concentrated to your community. And then, that gets old doing that every day. And you can only walk your neighborhood so many times unless it's like super beautiful, which most of these are just cookie cutter homes. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's very walkable, but you never really get a chance for your nervous system to calm down. So your body stays in this fight or flight kind of mode. And then, then you have triggers come across on your daily life, whether it be stressors at work or bad days, or I don't know, pressure from whatever financial stressors that people have, like housing prices or rent prices or whatever those stressors are. And so people get into this state of anxiousness, and their nervous system never gets to really calm down. So then they start to go online and they start to buy all these products thinking they have candida overgrowth. They have toxic metal or heavy metal toxicity. They think they have all these different things, and they probably have some of that, but they're in this like mode where you go into their kitchen and they've got all these pills lined up because they're living in the city where their nervous system never really gets to calm down. So it's quite apparent. You go out into the small towns, whether it be in the White Mountains or Sedona or out north, and people are a lot more calm and peaceful because they're not dealing with the same stressors that people who are living in the city are dealing with. And so it's really that simple. It's not necessarily going and buying a bunch of pills and buying a bunch of multivitamins and teas and detoxes and all this stuff, because people go to these extremes, spending thousands of dollars trying to chase this never-ending cycle when all they really need to do is just calm down their nervous system by getting out of the big city. What if it was just that easy? All you had to do was get out of the big city. Who knew? Yeah, I mean, they say that about big cities, but the way that a big city can function in a proper way is having the more centralization of cities, city lifestyle, eat, sleep, work, play, being more livable big cities. Right now, just being so focused on the car, going everywhere, being all spread out, it's sporadic. It's stress inducing. It's not peace. So these are things that we have to really talk about, become aware of what's the root of the problem. The root of the problem, why the housing prices went up so high. We already know it's because a bunch of people were trying to move there because they were unhappy where they were at. And then they come to Phoenix and then they're still unhappy because they never got to the root of the problem. So even with healthcare, it's like you can try and treat the symptoms with medicine all day long. Even when I get a headache, I'm always like, okay, I could just simply go pop a Tylenol or an Advil and the headache will go away. And then I'll have another one the next day. Or I can think to myself, what's causing the headache? Is it dehydration? Is it not enough electrolytes? Is it not, is it, what is it? Is it too much sugar? Is it too much fructose? Whatever it is. And then the headaches go away. And then I'm like, oh, okay. Because I got to the root of it instead of every day being reliant upon a Tylenol or a tablet. And a lot of people, they get into this whole web of thinking that everything's got a magic pill. And so every day they start doing that. But then what they're really doing is they're creating other problems in their body. Like, if you take a Tylenol every day and you're not getting enough water, I mean, is that good for your kidney? I don't know. I don't think so. Someone said not enough Fireball. I mean, yeah. And that's another thing. People are not having enough fun. They're not going out and having any fun. So they're talking about low serotonin and low dopamine. Well, it's like, when was the last time you went out and let your hair down? When was the last time you spent like a weekend going out and having fun? And they say, well, I don't know where to go. Well, then you sit there and you say, okay, so Phoenix needs more things to do that are fun for people so they can get serotonin releases. Growing up in Phoenix, maybe in the 90s and in the 80s, I thought it was a really nice place. I think it's gone downhill. And I look at some of the things that have gone downhill about it. It was more population and less things to do. So it was like they tore down a lot of the old infrastructure. Like, we used to have old West towns like Rawhide. You'd go to Westworld. I mean, Westworld was a lot different than it is now. There was a lot of places, even Cave Creek. I mean, the restaurants, the lifestyle. It was just more connected community in Phoenix. Even going to a Suns game was a totally different atmosphere. Going to a Diamondbacks was a totally different atmosphere in the 90s than it is now. And that's why they don't sell any tickets, because they didn't fix the atmosphere. They probably stayed the same without making any adjustments. And I'm not saying that everything needs to change, but I'm saying that the leadership needs to have their finger on the pulse with what's working. They can't just sell to Wall Street. And then, because this is something that happened. I went to El Pedregal. I don't know if you guys have ever been up to the boulders in Cave Creek or Carefree. It's by Troon, or not Troon, Terra Vita, next to Black Mountain, next to Carefree, Arizona. Go up there sometime. Just, if you're watching this, go up to the boulders. Okay. There's a place called the El Pedregal. Well, when El Pedregal was built in the 90s, maybe late 80s, early 90s, El Pedregal was like built right there at the base of the boulders. It's this big shopping center. It never really made its way. But I went over there maybe like 2 or 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, right when the lockdowns happened. And I started walking around there. I just wanted to see what's up. It's a beautiful place, really nice area to just go walk around. And I noticed that there was no shops, no shops were in there. And I talked to the one of the shop owners and I said, man, this is a really cool place. I'm surprised no one comes up here. And they said, yeah, a few years ago, they sold some I think they call it a hedge fund. They sold to some hedge fund in New York. So the guy who owns the hedge fund who owns the place has no interest in making the place cool, because they're just sitting on property. They just look at it like they're sitting on property in a high value area. So they have no interest in enhancing the area. They just want to sit on it. So they don't care if they sell real estate, because for them, they got money to burn, because long term, that area, real estate price is just going to go up for them. They live in Wall Street, which is in New York. So they own all this property all across Arizona, hedge funds and Wall Street. And so that's why you have this disconnect, because the local people don't have any of the power or say what's going on in their communities, because it's almost all owned by foreign investors. And I say foreign because out-of-state investors. This is a problem. So this is why you have so much dysfunction. And they might live here in Arizona during the wintertime, but when summertime comes rolling around, they're just kind of like, they're out. And even then, they still want to live in New York. They still want to live in their own places. But you locals in Arizona, when you start wondering, hey, why are things so dysfunctional? Well, that's one of the reasons. It's not the only reason. Commercial property is not going too well for them. Oh, they play the long game. You have to understand that they're in it for 5 or 10 years. It'll go well, just like what goes down must come up. What goes down or what goes up must come down. You know, they're gonna go through a market cycle. So they're playing the long game. They're just looking at it like, oh, they're sitting on a gold mine here, and it's like someone who owns a piece of property in a beautiful area in Hawaii or something, and then someone comes along and finally gives them the right price, and they make all their returns back on it, double, triple their money sometimes. So that's how they play it. You know, if you buy something for $2 billion or $1 billion, and then you sell it for 2 billion, you make $1 billion profit, but you were sitting on it for maybe, I don't know, 100, I don't know, not 100 days, but 5 years losing money. You only lost about 50 million, but you ended up selling it for you doubled your money. So you made what, $950 million profit, although you lost 50 million for the 5 years that you just sat on it. That's how they look at it. So Kamo says, I completely agree that Phoenix needs to focus more on filling in what we have and continuing to build instead of continuing to build out. Yeah, I mean, continuing to build out is okay, but you know, it should be done in a environmentally friendly way. It is really kind of disheartening to see a beautiful desert like Superstition Mountains, or even what we see in Paradise Valley. They've preserved Paradise Valley for the most part, although even Paradise Valley, could you imagine what Paradise Valley looked like 60 years ago? Could you imagine? And I've seen this. I know how it is, because if you go up to places like Desert Mountain or True North, and you look at the desert how it is now with all these houses. I mean, out there you would go on a hike in Pinnacle Peak area, you would see deer almost guaranteed. You might even see a wild tortoise, probably some javelinas, probably a coyote, all on one hike, along with a roadrunner, bunnies, and you know, who knows, maybe a bobcat sitting on top of a saguaro, and possibly a rattlesnake or a snake of some sort. Nowadays, you go for a hike in Pinnacle Peak, you might see a bunny rabbit, you'll see some doves, you'll probably see a hawk, but you won't see anything else. You'll hear coyotes in the background, but that's about it. I'm just giving you an idea of how Edenic things were, you know, like a Serengeti type environment in the desert, like really a teeming wildlife. You just don't see that anymore, especially in like the months of like March and April. You'd really see it. It's really nice up there. But now with all those houses, the animals are moving out. They're being forced out, right? So that's one of the downsides of urbanization of the Sonoran Desert. And I'm not saying this as a hippie tree hugger. I'm saying this as someone who likes to go on hikes in areas where I can see wild animals. It's fun. It makes the hike more interesting. East Mesa and Apache Junction, you will see coyotes regularly. Yeah, I mean, coyotes aren't always a good thing either, because I mean, if you have small dogs or cats, that's not a good thing for your cats, because coyotes, they will straight up take your dog and cat. I mean, growing up in Cave Creek where I did, probably lost about 3 cats, maybe 1 dog. Yeah, 1 dog. We had a small little terrier. He was there one day, and the next day he was gone. It was kind of an emotional experience, you know, because you're like, where's my dog? You don't see him for 7 days. You're like, okay, I think the coyotes got him. So I'm not sitting here saying that coyotes are all a good thing. Same with mountain lions and bobcats. They'll do the same thing to your pets. Roadrunner, those are an actual thing. Beep beep. Oh yeah, I mean, you could see roadrunners. You know, if you wanted to see some animals in Phoenix, in the city, go to the Phoenix Botanical Garden. They have a lot of. By the way, I know the title of the video is Arizona home prices, but we've been going for 48 minutes, so obviously you can only say so many things about projecting where the housing market is and housing prices. But that's why we're just conversating, because people like to hang out in here, and that's what we're doing. Phoenix is just LA with LAG, massive homeless coming. Well, I hope not. Solient says roadrunners are mean. But yeah, if you want to see roadrunners and you want to see some different types of animals, go to the Botanical Garden in Phoenix. As I would say, now that we're coming into fall, October here, good time to go from about October until April to that Botanical Garden. So you got 6 months to get out there. I mean, if I could give you a list of things you should probably consider doing if you wanted to see wildlife in Arizona, even going up to the South Mountain Range, doing some hikes out in South Mountain, going up to the boulders, like I said, Cave Creek, Carefree, exploring around there. Go around the neighborhoods, drive up on Black Mountain, see what it's like. That'll be a fun little day trip. Shabbat Shalom. Yes, it is Friday night. Do you think acre lots are going to be a hot ticket for sale? Acre lots? It depends on where. I mean, you could easily get an acre lot in St. John, Arizona. You could easily get an acre lot in Heber, Overgard, and I would say those are not going to be hot for quite some time. You could go down to Phoenix, and I would say, yeah, an acre lot in New River or Cave Creek or Carefree in North Phoenix or out in the Superstition Mountains is definitely going to be a hot one. People have always said, oh, Casa Grande this, Casa Grande that. So people went out and bought a bunch of property or considered buying a bunch of property in Casa Grande or around that area around 2018, thinking that the growth was going to start going down there because they were bringing in the electric car company, Lucid Motors. They were bringing in Nikola Motors. I think some semiconductor chip plants were going down there in that area, and none of those companies ended up being successful. I don't think Nikola or Lucid are going to be in business much longer. And if they are, they're going to have to get bought out and totally restructuring. For Nikola, that would be like the third time they've restructured in their 2-year existence. And those are things, so you got these big factories that might end up being mothballed. Hopefully not, though. But that's in the Casa Grande area. They were also going to be building Dreamport Village, which was this master plan amusement park, theme park area that all they did was create blueprints and drawings, and that was about it. Couldn't get any investment for that. So if you bought houses in Casa Grande, or if you bought acre of land in Casa Grande, you'd be better off buying a Bitcoin at that point. Because I think that's the value. Now, someone said Queen Creek, Santan Valley area. Yeah, that's an area where I would probably try to get some land. If you can get some land there, I wouldn't say do it now. I'd say if you can try to find the bottom of the price there, and that would be a good place. Can you talk about Payson and the laid back kind of people? Yeah, Payson is laid back. Payson is probably, I think the population is under 10,000. I think it's around I don't know the exact population, but they have Star Valley there. You also go up. You have Pine, and you have Strawberry. Very nice area if you go that way. That's the area I would prefer if you're looking for real true serenity. If you need to be closer to a city or a town, your Walmarts, your Targets, your grocery stores, that's going to be a Payson. But even if you live in Pine and Strawberry, you can easily get there. You could also live in Star Valley, not anything really there. Or you go up on the mountain, I think it's called Forest Acres or Forest Lakes, up onto the Mogollon Rim. They call it a rim, but it's really a mountain, right? Someone says, damn, don't give away all the gems. Well, those are the gems. If you really want gems, go to Southern Arizona, though. It's not all in, there's so many gems outside of Phoenix. It's crazy. And it only takes 2 hours to get from Payson, less than 2 hours. You can live in Payson and be an hour and a half away from Phoenix or Mesa. It's not that far. Maybe if we didn't have the freeway, the Beeline, that would be a problem. I almost call it the Bumblebee. You guys know where the Bumblebee is, right? So you have two freeways that basically take you north: the Beeline and the Bumblebee. Who knows where the Bumblebee is? Pop quiz. Who knows where the Beeline and the Bumblebee are? Let's see who knows. This summer, we had a bear, coyote, mountain lion, raccoons drinking from our pond. Caught them on game cameras. That's cool, Pamela. Where do you live? That's what I like. I like that kind of environment. Pamela, where do you live though? Like what area? Shane says no electricity. Well, where you want real off the grid living? Go to Rimrock. Rimrock is cool because it's right next to Montezuma's Castle. You can still get cheap land right there on Oak Creek. That's the Verde or Oak Creek or Wet Beaver. I think it's Wet Beaver Creek. Either way, you can still, wherever Montezuma's Castle is, there's a place called Rimrock. It's close to Sedona, and the prices of everything over there is really cheap. I started to wonder, I wonder if it's haunted because I'm like, why is it so, it's so close to Sedona, yet it's so cheap in Rimrock. What's the deal with that? Steve says Bumblebee is north of Crown King. There you go. Steve got it. Actually, it's not north of it. No, it's not north of Crown King. It's to the east of Crown King. It's in between I-17 and the Crown King. There's another place to go if you guys want a small town. Go up on the, I think those, what are the Bradshaw Mountains? Prescott National Park. Beeline is on the Pima. No, it's not on the Pima Reservation. The Pima Reservation is in the south. The Beeline is north of Phoenix. It's just it's nearby Black Canyon City. Jester says Phoenix looked like a bomb hit. Really? Florence has a few acre lots for sale. Yeah, Florence. So you saw a mountain lion and a bobcat in Florence? I don't know about that. Usually mountain lions and bobcats, they're on the foothills or up in the actual mountains. Like I went up back behind Superstition Mountains. I saw a bunch of bighorn sheep. Those were crazy. What would be the most important feature for a desert property? And do you think women would be safe on a large, very rural land? Yeah, for the most part, women should be safe on rural land. It would be nice to have some neighbors nearby, I would say, that you can trust. And most of the time, as long as it's not like a trailer or an RV squatting on a piece of land, that's a neighbor you probably don't want to have. Nothing against those guys, but I'm just saying you don't know. I mean, if you own a piece of land, usually the most stable people are going to be people who have built a house, and if the house looks like it's nice, they're probably stable people. Although you can never really judge a book by its cover, I'm just saying. But if you're talking about women being safe, I mean, those would be things that I would be on the lookout. Like, is there a lot of like people transient coming in and out of there? But the things that I would look for would be views. That's views. You want views. Rimrock's got the views. If the higher up you can go on a mountain, the better. But closer to a river or a lake or stream, it's rare to have property like that in Arizona. But if you can get that, that would be a good thing. Salt River has wild horses and bighorn sheep. Yeah, I've not seen any bighorn sheep out in the Salt River area, except for past the area they drop you off for the Salt River rafting. We want to be about 4,000 feet. So 4,000 feet is high desert chaparral. That's around Verde Valley. You could get that in Verde Valley. You could get that in some areas around Tucson. Like Oro Valley might be pushing it. That's a little bit lower elevation, but you have Oracle. Oracle would be a nice place if you can get out there to Oracle. We've made videos on this channel about the small towns. I mean, we're going to keep making small town videos because we just went to a bunch of different small towns here recently. We went to Morenci, we went to Baghdad, we went to Oatman, and those are on top of all the other ones we've gone to, like Patagonia, Cave Creek, which is down there by the Fort Huachuca or the Chiricahua Mountains. Springerville, Eager is a nice area. Then you have Pine Top Lakeside, which is a great area if you like pines. But 4,000 feet elevation. I mean, Payson's a little bit higher, but Payson's a good area. Do you see property taxes increasing with development? Well, let's look at Arizona. It's one of the least densely populated states. I mean, obviously, we're more densely populated than North Dakota and South Dakota and probably Montana, Wyoming. Aside from that upper Midwest, we're most of the West. If you look at a map at night from a satellite and you look down, west of the Mississippi or east of the Mississippi is going to have more lights, right? You go west of the Mississippi, you can see there's not a lot of lights. Arizona is also fairly not very populated because we have a lot of Native American reservations. So those are places you cannot buy land or build. I mean, you'll even see like parts of Phoenix, you know, where they built the South Mountain Freeway around South Mountain. You look off to the south, it's all barren land, and you say, oh, wow, I'm surprised they don't develop this. It's flat, all this. Well, that's the Gila River Indian community. Can't really build there. Someone says Payson and Flagstaff are too expensive. Yeah. Flagstaff for sure. Flagstaff is very expensive. I could live in Flagstaff for like in the summertime. You want to be in Flagstaff. I'm surprised more people haven't caught on to that. I mean, people spend all this time suffering down in Phoenix for whatever reason. It's like all you got to do is go up to Pine Top Lakeside, build a cabin, and you'll be experiencing 85-degree, 90-degree on a hot day out there, still being 3 hours away from Phoenix. Same with Flagstaff. And you can have a cabin, and anytime you need to get down in Phoenix for whatever, you're 3 hours away. You don't need to sit in Phoenix and bake like a potato, an egg. Has anyone been to Meteor Crater? Yes. We even made a video about Meteor Crater on this channel. Thank you to the 123 people who smashed the likes. If you want me to keep going, keep hitting the likes. I'll keep going. I know it's around, 10 or 11 there? What time is it there? Someone tell me. Last time I asked, no one really told me what time it was. And I'm still curious. Let me see here. It's 11:48 here in Thailand where I'm at making this video. Hopefully you guys hopefully you guys come over to Island Hopper TV and watch some of those videos, because I went to a lot of really cool places. Vietnam. I have a new channel called Island Hopper TV Travel Highlights also, but I just did a video on Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon. For those of you who are old enough to know anything about Vietnam, you know about Saigon. I learned a lot about that war. I went to the Cu Chi tunnels, the Mekong River, Saigon River, walked around Chinatown, got lost in Chinatown. If you want to see all that, go on to Island Hopper TV Travel Highlights, which is the baby channel to the big one. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I actually didn't really enjoy Hanoi too much. You guys, for those of you who know anything about that, the North is different than the South in Vietnam. It's my second time to Hanoi. I like it. It's just, I got scammed out of there. Actually, there's a lot of scammers, to be honest with you. Maybe it's because I started to because in the South, you could say you're from the U.S. pretty easily. In Vietnam, you could say, oh, I'm from the U.S. In the North, you say you're from the U.S. Next thing you know, you're getting scammed a little bit more. And you're like, okay, I'm from Canada. Christopher says, okay, so okay, there we go. Someone said the time. Thank you for telling me the time. 9:48. Cool. Thank you to Aces Up Silver, Marks, and Water Tiger for telling me. Good night, Jeff. See you on the next one. Thank you for hitting the likes, and welcome to all the new subscribers too. Where are the next growth areas and good for remote workers? Well, if I was a remote worker and I wanted to live in Arizona, I would suggest going to southern Arizona to places like, it depends on your age, but if you're over 40, I would suggest Green Valley to Tubac. That whole area is just really cool. Sahuarita right there. That's south of Tucson, north of the border. It's not dangerous there. People think, oh, it's so dangerous down by the border. No, it's not. It's not dangerous. It's safe. I mean, look at San Diego. I mean, you're further away from the border than La Jolla. Okay. Anyway, Sierra Vista. It's beautiful. It depends on if you like nature. If you're a nature lover, for a digital nomad or a remote worker, I'm going to make a video on Island Hopper TV about this very subject. The best countries in the world for digital nomads and remote workers, because this is a big thing. This is a trend that's coming. People working from home, wanting to be in a livable space. And so for me, having traveled around so many different places around America, Arizona, and now all over the world, of course, I've been to 71 countries. I mean, it has to cross my mind at some point in time. Hey, this is a place I could see myself living. Everyone on this channel or on both channels, they say, hey, of all those places, have you ever considered another country? So first I'll answer remote work in Arizona. I would say Sedona would be a great place. Prescott would be a nice place. I didn't say great. I said nice. In Phoenix area for remote work, Cave Creek, basically be Fountain Hills. Not in the in city. If you have the ability to be a digital nomad and a remote worker, I would not live in Phoenix. It's not a good place for remote work. Phoenix is a good place for driving. It's a city built for driving cars. It's not a city for sitting at home. That's the problem with Phoenix. Anthem, yeah, you could do Anthem. But two back, Sahuarita. Like I said, it depends on if you like nature. Do you like pines? Do you like high desert? Do you like hot, super hot? All those factors. Definitely Fountain Hills. I work remotely here, says Water Tiger. Yeah, Kingman. I mean, for a remote worker, I mean, obviously, how fast is the internet is a big question, right? I mean, that's a thing. Do they have Amazon Prime that can deliver things to you if you need it? Because your job might need, I don't know, a new computer or whatever. Are you able to get a new computer or a new phone, or if something breaks or something like that? I mean, those are the things that are important: internet, computer, and phone technology things. How fast can you get access to that if you need to in a pinch? Those are things you have to consider. Now, when it comes to America for remote work, I would say Hawaii, um, Montana, some parts of Arizona, Santa Fe, New Mexico. I could do probably some remote work from there. But really, you'd probably even consider moving out of the United States, because some of the things that are important for people who work remote is going to be culture, quality of life, good food, um, environment, beauty. Also, the big thing that drives a lot of Americans to become expatriates or expats is cost of living. And again, if you guys are interested in any of this remote living, digital nomad stuff, exploring the idea of living out of the country, you need to follow Island Hopper TV, because that's one of the big concepts there, is where around the world is livable and a place to check out and explore. Some places that I've been to in Mexico that I would consider, I mean, safety might be a little bit of an issue. It's not the big kicker there, but Zihuatanejo, for those of you who've seen the movie, Zihuatanejo is definitely interesting. Parts of Baja, or the Baja Peninsula in general, from La Paz, Laredo, San Felipe, Cabo San Lucas, that place is a gold mine. I'm saying it now. If you're young enough, if you're under 50, you've got to get down to the Baja. The Baja is wow. The Baja is wow in terms of beauty, beaches, weather. Man, the Baja is probably one of the premier up and coming areas in the world that I can think of. And it's right now, it's still largely undiscovered aside from Cabo San Lucas. I mean, if you get a chance to go down to Baja from go, I mean, from Rocky Point, which is obviously northern Sea of Cortez, you can easily go to Rocky Point. The closer you are to the border, the more corruption. I hear about this. People say they went down to Mexico and they got pulled over for a traffic infraction. The guy said, "Give me 50 or go to jail." And they get into this argument, and they'll basically have to pull $50 out of their pocket. And it's usually worth it to just do that. But it's the principle of the issue that pisses people off. They say they just can't get over the idea they got scammed like that for something they didn't even really do. But the further you get away from the border, south, the less corruption you're going to deal with that. Although it's still going to exist. So Mexico, Costa Rica is now it's gringo prices in most parts of the areas you would want to live, like Tamarindo. But Costa Rica is no longer very cheap, so you have to look to other places. Could I live in Vietnam? No, I don't really think I could live in Vietnam. If there was a place in Vietnam that I would live, it would be Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon. That was better than, or Da Nang. Da Nang, I could maybe live in Da Nang. But Hanoi, I would not. It's too rainy, and there was too many scamming that I experienced. Thailand, yes. Where I'm at right now, yes. Probably of all the places I've been in the world, Thailand is probably number one. It's safer than most of those places. It's got all the beaches. It's got the good prices still. So yeah, I mean, truth be told, I mean, I explored a lot of the Philippines. I went to like 9 different islands this time. You know, I went to Palawan, I went to Bohol, I went to Cebu, I went to Surigao, I've been to Boracay, went to Luzon, um, went to Siquijor, but the internet there is no good for remote work. It's cheap though. It's cheap, and in the Philippines, in the cities, they're not very safe, but in the province, it's safe. I don't know if that's necessarily true in every place that the cities are the dangerous place, and then outside the cities, a safe place. But it's true in America, certainly. Um, Christopher says the city of Phoenix has tremendous art budget that goes out as grants. Yeah, that's great. But every time I see the city or the government giving out grants, nothing ever comes of it. And so you can, what I'm saying is, you've seen that Phoenix has been doing that and nothing's really manifested in terms of art. And you can point to a few things, but what is manifested from that program? Grant programs usually, and I meet the people who've gotten the grants, they're usually like so excited. They're like, yeah, I'm getting $50,000 from a grant. And it's like, great, okay. And they're so excited and they tell you about their idea and it's all on paper. And then the $50,000 is gone and the project's dead. And I've seen this happen so many times with those grants. So that's not the solution. It's going to have to come from the idea of capitalism, which is, incentive to excel. There's got to be this incentive to achieve high results. And sometimes that comes from stress and pressure to achieve those results. And no better way than the idea of sky's the limit potential with incentives. I mean, that's my opinion on it. I mean, I've seen this. I've tested these theories. I mean, I look at socialism. I look at all these ideas. I mean, Vietnam's a communist country. I think about the good and the bad there, and I see it. The interesting thing about Vietnam is it's a communist country, but the people don't get any free money. There's nobody gets any handouts from the government. So the government just basically centralizes all the power, but no one gets the people during the lockdowns. No one got any stimulus checks like Americans got. So, it is what it is. What is the best rural health care closest to great medical care? What is the best rural area closest to great medical care? Okay, I can give you 5 in Phoenix or in Arizona. Well, what's considered close? Is 2 hours considered close? I'm assuming no. So obviously Tucson and Phoenix are going to be the areas. I would say Oro Valley. You could consider Vail, Green Valley. I mean, really look at where the retirees set up their retirement communities. Like Sun City. Obviously, Sun City is going to have great hospitals because that's where the most of the senior citizens are, and senior citizens need medical care. But I think you could get good health care close to Gold Canyon. Gold Canyon's a gold mine in Phoenix. Around Flagstaff, you could probably consider maybe even Williams or anything in between Williams and Flagstaff. You're going to get a lot of snowpack over there. So someone said the Gov is shutting down in 2 days. That's unfortunate. I think we've been hearing about that for 10 days, 12 days, or 12 years, I should say. And this is the first time that's going to actually happen. Is it for sure going to happen? I've been kind of out of the loop of the news. When I'm traveling, I try not to watch too much of the news because it stresses me out. But something like this, it's going to have a big impact if they're going to actually shut down. They're going to use it as an excuse for why things are crumbling. And then, so right now is probably not a good time to buy a home in Arizona because an event like this is going to create some sort of ripple effect in the economy. Yeah, Santan Valley and Queen Creek area are good, but they're growing so fast. I mean, most of the growth some of the most explosive growth that I saw in Phoenix Metro was happening in Queen Creek and Santan Valley. They were building just massive, massive communities. Even 5 years ago, you didn't have that in Santan Valley. Now you do. Water says the Apache curse anyone who lives within 1 mile of the Superstition Mountains because we stole it from them. Well, that same thing could be said for the whole country of the United States, and it could be said for the whole state of Arizona. So, I mean, you could say that whole thing. That whole thing about. They say that about Cave Creek too. So, how many times can you raise the debt ceiling before it breaks? I don't know. I mean, so is this your food video was very good. My food video, on Arizona channel. Yeah, that was a lot of footage. I mean, I wish when we made that video over a span of time, we didn't really know that we were going to make only a food video. So if I did it again, I would do it again, a little bit different. with a little bit more care and concern about a variety of different cuisines, including more steakhouses, probably more variety, because we really focused a lot on Mexican food for that. But yeah. Hey, out here in Thailand at the hotels, they give you glass bottles because plastic is a crazy thing with waste management, especially out here in Southeast Asia. So I think that's a good thing. Glass bottles instead of just every time I drink a water bottle, having to drink it out of a plastic bottle. It's crazy, right? Like, how many plastic bottles do people go through every day? As one person drinking a lot of water, someone can go through 5 or 6 or 7 bottles of water in one day. That's just one person. And a family of five, how many are they going through? You go to Costco, like in my house, I have one of those water dispensers where you get the 5 gallon and then you go through that. I go through one of those maybe like every 4 days, 3 or 4. No, it depends actually. 5 days depends on how many people are with me. But um, you go to Costco, and people are buying these big things of Kirkland waters, and I mean, geez, Louise, how much, what are we doing with all this plastic waste? Not everyone's recycling it too, you know. Uh, Got to be a golfer, Tiger Woods, I'd bet. Well, yeah, this is a Tiger Woods hat. I like Tiger Woods. I've always thought Tiger Woods was a nice guy. You know, obviously he had problems like most people do. I mean, all these people they judge someone because they're a celebrity, and then you find out, well, how many times were you divorced? Oh, you were divorced. Oh, you went through a hardship in your life. You did some things that you shouldn't have done. Judge not, for with that same measure you judge, you too shall be judged. So I'm not going to judge Tiger, but I do like his golf game. The guy used to crush the ball, and he's a nice guy, in my opinion. Made some mistakes, but yeah, I bought the Tiger Woods hat. Also, I'm looking for like hats out here in Thailand. They don't necessarily have like. I was wearing this hat in Vietnam. The guy wanted to sell me the camo in Vietnam because I'm like, I don't know if I should wear a camouflage hat. They're going to think I'm army. I'm former military, obviously, but I didn't have a problem in the South, but you know, I was wearing this. And then when I got to the North, I actually bought a hat that had Vietnam on it. I thought they were going to look at me a little more friendly, but I felt like I was getting scammed even more up there once I started wearing that. I've been refilling the same 2 Fuji water bottles for months. Just, yeah, I mean, you want to clean them, right? Because you don't want mold and algae to build up in there. But yeah, I mean, recycling bottles, I think it's a good thing. I mean, you have to trust the bottler to make sure that they're like cleaning those, right? I think I saw the process, so I was like, oh, I could drink it out of the Superstition Mountains has high strangeness. What do you mean high strangeness? I mean, there's a reason why they call them the Superstition Mountains. There's a lot of superstition involved in that place, not just the Jacob Waltz story of the lost Dutchman, but I mean, you guys have seen our videos where we go up onto the Apache Trail as far as you can go. I've even gone the back way around the upper side of the Apache Trail where Apache Lake is and Lake Roosevelt. I mean, that wilderness is quite amazing. It really is. Do you go to Water and Ice for refills? Yeah, sometimes, but when I was living in Arizona, I was getting into this idea of like the water you drink needs to be like alkalized, or it needed to be like mineral water. And then I was like, am I drinking just distilled water? Am I getting enough electrolytes? Because there is a thing, you can drink too much water and drain your body of electrolytes. So even though you think you're getting hydrated, you're really dehydrating your body of electrolytes. So then I started thinking about like, okay, then do I need to drink mineral water? Because if my ancestors, how are they drinking water? They obviously weren't drinking filtered water. So I got into this whole idea of like, it's really hot in Arizona, how to stay hydrated. And I think they said like 90% of the population in America, at least, is chronically dehydrated. Chronically dehydrated. So odds are, if you're watching this, 9 out of 10 of you are dehydrated, like chronically. And so I went in this idea of like how to hydrate my body, because I realized I was drinking a lot of water, but I wasn't hydrating. I still was getting a dry mouth. Like when I sleep in Arizona, in particular, especially in the summertime, my mouth is dry in the morning, where it's not out here because it's more humid. And it's because like, you know, you have the AC. So I got a humidifier. I wanted to make my house more humid, and I was drinking more water, thinking that it was an issue with the hydration, and it really is. But those are things that you have to take into consideration, how to hydrate your body, and a lot of it has to do with electrolytes. So I started eating more fruit. Watermelon is a big thing, coconut water, stuff like that. Why can't AZ resolve a new source of water? Well, because it's a desert. I mean, that's a big reason why. What else would be the reason why Arizona couldn't reserve? I mean, we basically are foreign dependent. We're dependent upon California for that water. We're dependent upon Colorado and Utah for that water. We do have dependency on the Salt River that provides a lot of water from the that you see at the 4 reservoirs: Swirl Lake, Canyon Lake, Apache Lake. Also have the Gila River, Roosevelt Lake being the biggest one. I mean, if that ever got low, I would be concerned for Phoenix. But as a resident of Phoenix, I don't get too concerned about the water levels at Lake Mead. If I was in Las Vegas, I would be really concerned about that. But the one in Phoenix that I'm paying attention to is Lake Roosevelt. Now, about the idea of getting water from the Sea of Cortez through desal, it would have to depend upon how close you get along with Mexico. And I don't think most people in America have done a very good job of showing too much love to Mexico. I mean, like, I love Mexico. Like I said, I would consider living down there in some parts. But I'm saying, like, America's reputation with Mexico, can you really trust them with being your source of water? I mean, you might even have to consider, like, going down there and saying, hey, Mexico, can we buy this part of Mexico right here? And, like, doing one of those land buys, like southern expansion, southwestern expansion. And the only area that you'd probably want to buy is that area in Sonora, right there on the ocean. And then if you have access to that, then you solve Arizona's water problem. But you'd have to purchase that land in order to guarantee that you have that access. But or you just have to keep things very diplomatic with Mexico, and I don't know if that's even possible. I mean, if you invest, how much money is it going to cost to build a huge, massive desalination plant? At that point in time, the real the best place to live in Arizona would be in southern Arizona, if they ever built a desal place or plant in Sea of Cortez, right there in northern Mexico. Places like Tucson, Nogales, Tubac, Green Valley, Sahuarita, all the places that are not on the reservations are going to be like where you want to be living, because closer to the water source. Desal would have to be like nuclear. That will take a while. Yeah, I mean, you even have to wonder, like, how much longer is Palo Verde's nuclear power plant going to be working for? You guys know where Phoenix gets most of its power, from a nuclear power plant called Palos Verdes National, or nuclear power plant. A lot of people don't even know where Arizona gets its power, but it's from Palos Verdes nuclear power plant, and it's southwest Phoenix, beyond Buckeye, south of Tonopah. When you drive to San Diego or drive down to Mexico, you can actually see it. It's a huge nuclear power plant, and it's quite old at this point. And I'm not sure, I haven't really researched the infrastructure there to see how sustainable that is long term, but will it last forever? I doubt it. So, energy, water, those are two big things that a growing metropolis like Phoenix needs to take into consideration. Also, airports. I think they're doing an okay thing with Mesa, but at some point in time, they might even consider building I mean, we're talking long-term planning, an airport in between Phoenix and Tucson. But this is going to require a lot of public infrastructure enhancements. I mean, the only way out of it is going to be depopulation of the area, which isn't going to happen. So there's going to be more population coming. I think Phoenix to Tucson is projected to have 10 million people by 2050. So the airport between Phoenix and Tucson, and then they're going to need a high-speed rail. The high-speed rail is something that needs to be talked about yesterday, because getting from Phoenix City Center or Scottsdale from the airport. That's got to be Sky Harbor is going to reach its capacity at some point. So they're building Mesa Gateway, and I'm not so sure Mesa Gateway is going to be able to be that airport, but it's supposed to take some of the demand off of Sky Harbor. But driving around Sky Harbor, getting into Sky Harbor, even Terminal 2, Terminal 3, is it Terminal 4, Terminal 3? Wherever American Airlines is, you can't even find seating in there most times. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you go to Sky Harbor, and you go to where American Airlines is, it's completely full in there. So, do you think Globe is up and coming? It could be, but no, not as of right now. I think Globe is up and coming as a tourist destination for history buffs, which could make it interesting, kind of like what we saw in Jerome, where it's becoming a tourist attraction. The area is nice, but there's no real development taking place there. I would say Wickenburg. Wickenburg is a nice place. Thank you, Jezroon. Yeah, I actually wear these glasses because they're blue light protecting. They have a little bit of a yellow tint to them. So I wear those glasses. And then this shirt I got tailor-made here in Thailand for like $20, $30. It's a nice shirt, sateen. I actually have some more clothes going through there. Thank you, Jezroon. Just bought a house, Union Hills and 16th Street. Okay, that's an all right area. That's an area that used to be really nice, and it's in the area of Paradise Valley High School. I just went to Wickenburg last weekend. A great place. Yeah, I mean, it's a rural place, and you got mountains and foothills there, and it's not overpopulated, and they've been building new communities out there, so it's pretty good. Advice for someone looking to travel like you do. Well, subscribe to Island Hopper TV. That would be where I would recommend. I mean, because this is an Arizona channel, I would also recommend you coming over there and, then asking those kind of questions over there where I can maybe even make videos answering those same questions on live streams and stuff. Because if I talk too much about travel on here, it would put off the people who are subscribers to Arizona. But to answer your question in short, I got a lot of information for that, but it would be subscribe to Island Hopper TV. Haven't done that since 2001. I'm in the Bay Area now, and I can't take it anymore. Oh, yeah, it's expensive. I've heard a lot of complaints about people over there. Across the street from North Canyon High School on 16th Street in Union Hills. Yeah, okay, North Canyon. Yeah, that's over there by Cave Creek Road then. Yeah, they got that cool mountain there. I would say Cave Creek Road in Union Hills is always an interesting intersection. It's always been an interesting intersection. For those of you who are longtime Arizona residents, you know exactly what I'm talking about, especially if you're from northern Phoenix. Homes around the Camelback Mountain and Paradise Valley area are amazing. Yeah, they are. They are amazing. I mean, that's where most of the pro athletes, I think Charles Barkley lived there. Kurt Warner had a house there. Most of the Suns players, when they live in Phoenix, they probably look at that area first. That's Arcadia, Paradise Valley. That's a really nice area. You said it, I-Train or T-Crane. That's exactly the spot I'm talking about. All right, I'm going to throw my dad out there on this one. When my mom was looking for my dad, she would drive by there to see if my dad was. Hey, man, it is what it is, okay? This is the truth. I actually never been inside there, though. I've never been inside there. And I'm not opposed to places like that. But I actually never went inside there. I should probably go there at some point. White Tesla Town, it gets old so fast. Which one are you talking about, Jeffster? If you guys want me to keep going, we're an hour and 28 minutes into it. Hit the likes. We're at 166. Need to get up to 200 because soon I'm going to go out and get a foot massage. Because here in Bangkok, you can just walk out the road here. There's a foot massage. Really comfortable, too. Like, you go in there, it's like a dark room. There's like other people getting massaged. The seat reclines, very comfortable, like a lazy boy recliner. And then on the roof, they have these like stars to kind of light it up a little bit. And I sit there and I work from my phone, check emails and respond to people that I haven't messaged. I do like an hour massage for like $10. And you feel like relaxed. They give you also neck and shoulder. I might even do 2 in one day sometimes because it's like you could sit there at a cafe and check your emails and stuff, or you could just go get a massage in a lazy boy recliner in a nice dark room, very, very relaxing with nice AC, everything just so comfortable, a little bit of light music, check all your emails, do all your work. Or you could sit here in like a cafe and like with no AC and tweak out. It's not good. Flag has no problems. Sorry, pretty city. Flag is cool. Went to Bangkok and Phuket in 2015, loved it, and want to go back. Everyone was so nice. Yeah, I mean, there's Bangkok is one of those cities I land at in the world, along with Dubai and Singapore, when I just get like happy to be there. Like the only city in America that might get me on that level, oh man, maybe Miami, but Miami quickly lets me down. Like it doesn't really live up to it. Maybe San Diego, but no. Yeah, so you just don't get that feeling traveling domestically in the United States where you're like, yeah, I'm here. I'm here. This is going to be awesome. Like get excited for what's coming. But here around the world, like traveling outside the world, like you land in a place like Athens or even no matter how many times you go there, Bangkok or Singapore or Hong Kong. Hong Kong is kind of like, okay, it's going to be a little bit stressful. So I don't like stressful anxiety places where there's like chaos. It's just Hong Kong's got so many people. It's like a flood of human traffic just flowing like in all directions. There's not many cars because people take the metro and then they just walk everywhere. And it's like shoulder to shoulder crowds just going in all directions. And it's organized chaos. It's cool. But if you live in Phoenix and you're used to taking cars everywhere and not those kind of crowds, I mean, imagine going to the Cardinals game on a sellout and having those crowds just all around you walking like that. That's how much concentration of crowds there is in Hong Kong. It's like that in some areas in Tokyo too. But Bangkok, definitely one of those places that right when you land at the airport, you get excited. Just the food, the people, the environment, the cheap affordability. I mean, everything. And then I hear people they don't even like it, and I'm like, well, because you need a tour guide when you come to Bangkok. You need to be with somebody who can show you around Bangkok so you can understand it. But there's a reason they made Hangover 3 here. Okay, it wasn't because it's a boring place. Oh, you're a Niners fan. I'm a Cardinals fan for sure. But Cardinals are really they're in a tough place. Thank you, Jezreel. Lars says, I feel stressed eventually on almost every car ride in Phoenix area. I know, I do too. I do too. That's why I kind of like to venture out a little bit. I love Phoenix. I mean, I grew up there. I love Arizona. I mean, I love the small towns in Arizona. In fact, for most people who move to Arizona, I'm at the point where I tell people probably don't live in the cities. And I could say this about every single state in the country. If you're going to live in American cities, you're not going to have a very well balanced lifestyle. It's not very healthy. Living in American cities, American cities need to have a renaissance, a revolution of thought, a revolution of ideas, and it needs to go away from the dependency on the automobile industry. The automobile industry is one of the biggest industries in the United States, and because of that, we've basically become dependent on that because that was what was sold to us as a society: is drive your car, drive your car, drive your car, drive your car. But humans are not meant to take cars. That's why you were born with 2 legs, not 4 wheels. I mean, come on. What's your favorite city in Mexico? Okay, I could give you my top 5. Zihuatanejo, Cabo San Lucas, Mexico City, Playa del Carmen, maybe Puerto Vallarta or Puerto Escondido. San Miguel de Allende is okay, but that's not really a city. Querétaro, I mean, Guanajuato's cool, but I wouldn't live there. Americans are too busy just trying to make ends meet right now. Yeah, they're too busy trying. So that's a stress. So you already have the financial pressure to survive, to pay the bills, but then what you're paying for is not even really making you happy because you're on this wheel. Your people are in this cycle of paying for things that are not making them happy. So they're just surviving in this unhappy environment, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I've tried to say this, it doesn't have to be that way, but people just say, oh, that's just the way it is. That's just the way it is. Life isn't meant to be enjoyed. And it's not true, because I meet plenty of people who are excelling and living the best life, and it's possible. It's just you have to put a little bit of creativity into it, and as a society we have to reimagine how we're doing it. But yeah, I mean, you're paying all this money to live in a city, to go to work and do a job that you don't really enjoy, and driving a car in a streets that you don't really enjoy driving. It's not like it's a beautiful roads. Like, the roads in Arizona are not beautiful. I mean, it's like 3 lanes, 6 lanes all across the way. We're talking about the roads, the streets. The freeways are chaos. So the best parts of Arizona are not in the city. They're just not. The best parts of Arizona are in southern Arizona, northern Arizona, central Arizona, Wickenburg, Cave Creek, Fountain Hills, Gold Canyon, Oro Valley, Vail. But at some point in time, even Queen Creek, those places are going to get overpopulated, and then they're just going to get swallowed up by urbanization. I'm looking at Mazatlan. Okay, I've been to Lake Chapala, which is nearby Guadalajara. It's a beautiful place. The lake is kind of polluted, but it is a beautiful, cool place. It's nice. I don't know if I could live there. It's cool to visit. Mazatlan. I've never been to Mazatlan, actually. That's the only main tourist. I've also never been to Monterey. So between Monterey and Mazatlan, I've never been to Pueblo, and I've never been to Merida. Those are like the 4 big ones that I haven't been to. But I've been to like a ton of other places, right? In Mexico, I would probably go to La Paz or Todos Santos. That would be the area that I would be talking about. Bitcoin, yeah. Bitcoin is my backup plan. That's the one, fingers crossed, this next halving. Bitcoin. I'm banking on that one and Ethereum. We'll see. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I stay away from Mazatlan. But right across the Sea of Cortez from Mazatlan is La Paz, which they say is dangerous, but it's more dangerous if you're in a cartel or you're into any sort of bad activity. Yes, that's right, Hat Pauser. You hit the nail on the head because of that ferry. I love ferry boats because it's a great way to get around. It's better than an airplane. And you don't have to go through all the security screenings and all this stuff, and they're cheaper. So ferry boats, especially if they're high speed, are comfortable. They have cabin space. I like that. Why did you leave the Big Island of Hawaii, Jeff? Why did I leave the Big Island? Well, I still think about the Big Island and how I'd like to go back. It was, well, actually, the reason I left the Big Island was to move to Maui. And the reason I moved to Maui was because I got a job that was working in Maui that I couldn't do on the Big Island. So I had to move to Maui. So the question would be, why did I leave Hawaii, right? But that's why I left the Big Island. But I was living in Kona. I still think about moving back to the Big Island. I would say I probably missed the opportunity to buy property. And actually, I think you can still buy property on the Big Island. I mean, the Big Island is going to be probably the best. If you could live anywhere in America as a digital nomad, Hawaii. And where in Hawaii? The Big Island. The Big Island is it. Oh, the Maui fire. Well, okay. So this is what I'll say about the Lahaina. So I used to go to Lahaina, Front Street. I've made several videos, even on Island Hopper TV, just driving down Front Street with my camera, driving down Front Street. So it was unique to think about, like, what happened there, like how all of that burned down and how rare that was. But when I was living in Maui, we used to get fires probably about 2 or 3 times per year. So for those of you who do not know, I was in the military, and then when I got out of the military, I moved to Hawaii. right? I lived there for like 3 or 4 years before moving back to Arizona. Arizona is where I grew up for, most of my life, right? But living in Maui and going to Front Street, I used to think like they need to modernize that place because it was kind of like stuck in time in 1960s. So I would hear things. I actually had a dream when I was in Hawaii about like a smart city being built in Lanai. And for those of you who know anything about what's going on behind the scenes with that, I'm not going to give any insight into that, but I will say that I had a dream that Lanai was going to be a smart city, and it was going to be like this like perfect place on earth, which was Lanai. And I was living in Kihei at the time when I had that dream. And I remember like, why did I have that dream? And it was a very vivid dream. And I knew that Larry Ellison owned Lanai. So when I heard that they had a master plan community to be built in Lanai or in Lahaina, I immediately kind of said, yeah, that was right along the lines of what my dream was, because you can take a ferry from Lahaina to Lanai. And I used to love doing that because there's a beautiful beach on Lanai right next to the Four Seasons. And it's kind of a paradise place, really. It's like, if you could imagine the perfect place on earth, that would be it. The Maui connecting to Lanai and just that waterway and the islands surrounding Maui. But I remember thinking like the Lahaina waterfront is just old. It's dilapidated. Some people loved it. They'd be like, oh, it's so beautiful here. It's so cool. But it wasn't really a place that you'd want to hang out. It wasn't. It was old. There was no AC. Like the stores were like really janky. The wood, the waterfront, it wasn't very nice. I mean, it wasn't very nice. So when it burned down, I was like, man, that's crazy. That is crazy. And you heard the stories about all the people who were caught in it. And I mean, those were like that's the worst part about it. That's the worst part for sure. And I still know people on Maui that experienced hardship because of that. But as far as like that area needing to get modernized, now the locals don't really have a choice but to rebuild that area. So what I'm saying is there was a need to redevelop that area, especially moving forward, but the thing is the locals never would let developers do anything there. Hawaii is like one of the hardest places to get anything done. Rightfully so. I mean, because the locals are protecting the land. They're the Aina. They're protecting the land. They don't want to see it overdeveloped. They don't want to see it paved and turned into an urban empire, right? But Lahaina was too old. I mean, it wasn't built with modern standards in line, and a fire like that comes raging across. I mean, all the buildings, it seemed like, down there on Front Street were wood. I mean, but now as to what caused it, I mean, I remember there was a pretty bad fire that happened in Kona. Kona is, I mean, if you ever wanted to see what Lahaina used to look like, just go to Kona, Kailua Kona. Same situation down there. I mean, the hotels are like super old, like Uncle Billy's. I think it got bought out, but the Sheraton is like so old. The building is so old. I mean, it's kind of cool, but they need to renovate that place. Even the Marriott down there needs to be renovated. I mean, but just walk along Ali'i Street in Kailua Kona, it's all wood. And I remember there was a big fire. There was a fire that broke out, and we would get fires in Kona maybe like 2 or 3 times a year. And you would see big helicopters flying in with big buckets of water. They would come in with a bucket. The helicopter would come into the bucket, pull it out of Kailua Bay, and then bring it over the houses, and then drop the water right on the fire from the ocean. That's where they would get the water. And you would see it, and you would never really think like, oh, this could burn down the whole city. But it would always be in the back of your mind. You're like, oh, what if this like became a big fire? Could it burn down Kona? Could it burn down Lahaina? Could it burn down Kihei? It's in the back of your mind, but you never really thought it could actually happen. So when it happened, it was kind of like, whoa. Locals won't get loans to rebuild. That's the thing. I mean, for the developers, for the people who want Maui is like primetime real estate globally. You're not going to find another. I mean, Condé Nast, TripAdvisor has Maui ranked as the best island in the world. I think Big Island's more amazing than Maui, but you're not going to find a more premier real estate than Maui. And when you have the locals that have been living there for generations, whether they're mixed, Hawaiian, and in Hawaii, there's this big thing about blood quantum. And I'm talking about this on an Arizona channel because we're at an hour 44 minutes and we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. But there's a big thing in Hawaii about this thing called blood quantum. Blood quantum is how much of your bloodline comes from Hawaiian lineage. Most of the people living in Hawaii, maybe less than 10%, are Hawaiian by the blood quantum. So most of the people living there, maybe even less, are actual Hawaiian ancestry. So what you have is a lot of like mixed Pacific Islanders, mixed Portuguese, mixed European, mixed Micronesian, which is Pacific Islanders, Filipinos, and those are the locals who live in Hawaii. And so I don't know moving forward what their plan is going to be, but the developers can never get anything done, and they really have to listen to the native Hawaiians because that is truly their land. But to them, the developers, I think the way they look at it is, well, the people living there are just from everywhere else but Hawaii, so they're not native Hawaiian. So when they're having these meetings, most of the time the locals aren't actually native Hawaiian. So the developers are, I think the way that the attitude from the developers from the top is, this is just what I've observed, is kind of like, yeah, well, we're going to have to do what we got to do to make Maui the smart city that they want to make it. And the locals are like, yeah, right. But I think the powers who be, they have the control and the power when they rebuild. Most of it's not going to be with those locals in mind. So as heartbreaking as that is, as sad as that is, they're going to be displaced. And one of the jokes in Hawaii is Las Vegas is considered, like, I think they call it like the 10th island or the 8th island or something, because most people from Hawaii who used to live in Hawaii end up resettling in Las Vegas. But I mean, this is all speculation. I have no idea what they're going to do with Hawaii. I have no idea. But those are, I do know that developers want that chunk of land right there by Lahaina to be built in a certain way that's in compliance with their smart city design as they were going to rebuild it. So say what you want about all of that, but I mean, that's the reality of the situation. Developers are going to have the big say along with Native Hawaiians, and the Native Hawaiians are kind of out manned on that one when it comes to it. So you know that the developers are going to get their way with what they're going to do. But the tragedy in it all is how many people had to lose their lives in the event, and how many people are still missing, and what's the real count. And that's, I think, what hits hardest, right? But you have to look at the rebuild. I mean, it's kind of like what you saw in Katrina, but when Katrina had it happen, they built back a little bit better, but I wouldn't say they built back better. Like the rebuild in New Orleans was not that fantastic. But in Maui, they're going to build a fantastic new modern waterfront. It's going to be a whole other world in the next 10 to 15 years down there in Lahaina. And they're going to build it fast too. They're not going to take their time. But that's what I'm saying. Like the opposition to the developers' plans are going to say, well, I've been living here for generations, and the developers are going to find every way to get around that. And that's just my prediction of what they're going to do. Many people sick unaccountable, massive cover up. Oh, well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm not getting into all of the whole what could have really happened. All I'm saying is the situation as we know it, it burned down. They're going to have to rebuild it. And it was a tragedy. Those are the three things we do know for sure. The idea of Hawaii separating from the United States is a sovereignty movement that I don't think goes over too well with Washington. Supposedly there was a hurricane hundreds of miles. Yeah, I know about I know about the original story. The hurricane, the high winds, all that. Now, the thing about hurricanes in Hawaii, the reason they never really get a direct hit on Hawaii is because Mauna Kea, Mauna Loa, and then Haleakala. And those three big volcanoes have so much force field off of them that when a hurricane, I mean, it's like a hurricane sees that, feels that, and doesn't want anything to do with that. No, but really what happens is they never get hit. Like Kona never gets hit with a hurricane unless it's coming from the southwest. I think there was like one hurricane that came from the opposite direction that hit Kona. But like a hurricane that's developing over Mexico or off the coast of Mexico or Costa Rica or something like that, that heads over towards the Pacific, you'll see those every year. There'll be like 5 or 6. And Hilo gets a little bit of it, but by the time the hurricane hits Hilo, it's getting completely just destroyed by Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa. And the same thing could be said for Haleakala. So I mean, there's no way that Maui could get hit with a hurricane unless it came from the opposite direction, from the southwest. It can get hit with a hurricane, but the likelihood that it'll be a Cat 5 is too small. No, we're not doing that tonight, Hat. But what I am saying is that, you know, you can look at it from yourself. I think at the end of the day, Maui is going to build back super. I mean, you're going to want to go to Maui in 15 years because what they're going to build in Maui is going to be world class. I mean, I was down in Kaanapali. I used to go down to Kaanapali all the time. And the hotels there were like world class resorts, but it smelled like sewage all throughout there. And I remember being like, dude, people are paying $600, $700 a night. This was in 2017, 2016 to stay in Kaanapali. And it smells like sewage right outside the hotels. And I remember thinking like, what's the deal with this? Like you got all this beautiful beachfront property and it smells like this sewage, like reeking. And you would ask some of the locals and they say, they can't get anything done. They can't get anything done. The developers can't get anything done. And you think to yourself, that's got to be frustrating for the developer to try and get something done that needs to get done, but they can't get anything done because there's all this. New York is being flooded out as we speak. Yeah, I mean, the weather, there's no doubt that the weather has been getting a bit more ferocious over the last 20 and 30 years. Although, you know, you go back to the 90s, you remember Hurricane Andrew, you know, Hurricane Aniki. There's been big storms, but they say the reason that these storms are happening and these anomalies, because didn't Arizona had a threat of a hurricane coming from Baja. And you almost think like, what if there was this perfect storm that just came up Sea Cortez perfectly, and by the time it made landfall, it's actually not perfect. There would never be a hurricane that could hit Arizona, but it would have to come over the Sea of Cortez across the Baja. But there's mountains there, so it can never really succeed. So you'd only get like the after effects, which would be a tropical storm. But the idea that there were hurricane fallout, hurricane tropical storms hitting Phoenix these days, pretty much every September or October, like every other September or October, that didn't happen in the 90s. I don't remember that ever happening. Maybe once in a while, you know, we'd always talk about El Nino. Or they call it, one year they call it El No Show because they call El Nino El Nino because, you know, you get a lot of rain in May or April, which April and May are dry months for the most part in Arizona. But when I think it was like the year was maybe 1999 or 2000. I can't remember the exact year. But the rain, we were getting like no rain January, February, March. Like the tradition was played at Desert Mountain and it was like beautiful weather. And everyone was calling it El No Show. And then all of a sudden, like right after spring break, April and May, we just got so cold and so much rain. And I remember never again call El Nino El No Show, because the second you call El Nino El No Show, it's gonna just do some nasty stuff. and it was so cold, like even in May in Phoenix. But I haven't seen an El Nino like that since 1999. Hurricane Hillary. No, but I mean the idea that even a hurricane was coming to Phoenix, that was unthought. That was on. That was not even. It's like an earthquake in Arizona. Like the earthquakes don't happen in Arizona. So this idea that an earthquake could happen in Arizona or a hurricane could hit Arizona, it's like a new idea. It's funny how the big rainstorms often fizzle out by the time they get to Maricopa. Yeah. So the theory behind that is because it's a concrete jungle now. Before it was dirt, clay, Palo Verde trees, mesquite trees, ironwood trees, saguaro cactuses over most of the areas that have now been turned into asphalt, concrete, pavement. And so you want to talk about climate change, man-made climate change, that would be a theory that could make sense because when it's 110 degrees, that heat hitting the concrete and then radiating up, it does create a bit of a firewall. So, I mean, those are things that you kind of have a hard time refuting when it comes to that specific subject of could the urbanization and the concrete jungle or concrete desert be the reason why we don't get monsoon storms into Phoenix like we used to? Because I remember even back in the 90s, you would get massive thunderstorms June, July, August. Around 4th of July, you would be getting every 4th of July. I remember in the 90s, you'd be getting big storm clouds threatening the 4th of July event that might be closed right there in downtown Phoenix. That was at Wesley Boland Plaza. Because back in the 90s, you'd go to Wesley Boland Plaza. I don't even think Wesley Boland Plaza is a thing nowadays, but that's where you would go, downtown Phoenix. You would go to Tempe. You would go to Fountain Hills. And then Cave Creek finally got in the mix. Most of those shows have gone away. I think you can still do like one in Tempe and one in, but on those nights, big storms would be brewing right over Phoenix because that was when monsoon season would start. Nowadays, you get a monsoon season. They say it starts in June, but you don't really see any monsoon activity in Phoenix until late July. And then August is like your monsoon month. And sometimes it'll carry over into September because of the hurricanes that are now coming that didn't used to come. So the climate has changed. What has caused it? Probably nature has a lot to do with it. Also, in Phoenix in particular, the concrete jungle. And as you go around if you go around Arizona in monsoon season, for example, the South, Tucson, Patagonia, Southern Arizona wine country, you will see Tombstone, Bisbee, you'll see tons of monsoons, just like it used to be in Phoenix. But Phoenix doesn't get that kind of activity anymore. So that's what makes you think that the paving of the desert has created this like heat shield that kind of stops the storms from developing, kind of like the idea of what happens with Haleakala and Mauna Loa and Mauna Kea when a hurricane comes. There's like a heat shield that kind of radiates up that prevents any sort of precipitation from actually occurring. And yeah, I mean, my dad, who's been in Arizona a long time, since he was 7, him and his friends that he talks to, his good friend actually owned Rieta Pass. His family owns, you guys might know the Cavaliers. They own Rieta Pass, but they sold. So Rieta Pass no longer exists, but it was like a steakhouse, a place you get married. Greasewood Flats, we used to go out there. I don't know if you guys know about it, but it's by Pinnacle Peak. They didn't have a choice but to sell. Let's put it like this. That's how I know when developers are moving in, they want what you got, they're going to take it. And that's kind of what happened. And you can fight them all day long, but they're going to come up with reasons to see you in court and all this stuff. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that, but they had to sell. And he was telling me his buddy Cavalier was, Doc. Any of you guys who live out there, there's a park named after Doc Cavalier. And he was saying that his son, who's my dad's like best friend from childhood, was saying that the saguaros, yeah, they're wilting over and dying. But he had some interesting theories about that. But most of it had to do with the fact that the ground, the clay, it's so dry. the radiation from the ground was just cooking the saguaros more than they ever did. That's why they're wilting. And you'll see like a healthy saguaro population in some parts of Arizona. You go up into the Apache Trail area, you'll see some healthy saguaros up there. So most of the healthy saguaros are at higher elevations, but saguaros don't really grow at high elevations. That's why when you start going up the I-17 from Phoenix to Flagstaff or anywhere up there, once you get up onto the plateau towards Cottonwood, you're not going to see any saguaros in Cottonwood or Camp Verde because they can only grow at a certain elevation. What happened? Katie Hobbs, the mayor, temporarily resigned, and whoa. So the mayor of Arizona or the governor of Arizona just resigned. I said it before. I watched that lady's interviews and I was like, that's not who we want running our state. Regardless of political affiliation, didn't look strong, didn't look tough, didn't look like, maybe had a nice personality at times. I mean, if I could say something positive, kind of had a pleasant personality, but to be governor of the state of Arizona, I was kind of like, whose idea was this? Whose idea was this? I mean, it's like, regardless of party affiliation, I mean, you're thinking about the future of Arizona. It was like, I don't think that was it. I don't think that was the direction. I thought so there was better candidates, more qualified all across both parties that I would have put in there. But so to hear something like that, it doesn't come to me as a surprise. Thank you, Deacon MMA. It is strange that she would just step down. Oh, she's having a plastic surgery. Okay, well, okay. I don't know if you're serious or not. I haven't even seen the news. Yeah. Selections, not elections. Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're at these days. Most of everything we have going on is they say it's the people's choice, but most people are like, yeah, we're right. Anyways, I've been going at this for 2 hours. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. And you can watch from the beginning if you want to get back to the prices. At the end of the day, I would say prices coming down in Arizona is a good thing. It's not good for people who own homes that bought in 2021 and 2022, but overall long-term prices needed to come down. So they do need to come down in order to make it more livable. So prices coming down are a good thing for most of the people. And if you bought in 2021 or 2022, like me, I already told you my story about why I did that. And I'm not panicking is because it's a condo. And long term, it's going to bounce back and it's going to go up. Might take 10 to 15 years, though. Could be sooner. We'll see. But thanks for watching. And come on over to Island Hopper TV. Subscribe to that channel. And also watch Island Hopper TV travel highlights if you want more of what's going on behind the scenes, like the video I made about American getting lost in Saigon in Chinatown. That one was, for me, it was an interesting experience to get lost in Saigon. That video is on Island Hopper TV travel highlights. You can find that channel on the homepage of the Island Hopper if you wanted to watch those. That's just if you wanted to see some Vietnam footage and some of my other videos. But see you guys from Thailand. That's where I'm at right now, making videos for Island Hopper TV. So see you guys. Thanks, Marks, Jay, Water Tiger, Deacon MMA, Jay Boda, Aces. Thank you to everyone for subscribing and liking the videos. And see you guys next one.